Welcome back, Lori. I am so excited for this topic. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more around how to influence your birth. We know we can't control it, but when we say we can influence birth, what does that even mean?
When you say we can't control it, I think we're not meant to control birth.
Mhm.
We look back with in the ages, birth has definitely changed a lot, but I think that people definitely underestimate the ability that we have to influence their birth. I know that in our prenatal retreat, Nikki, we're going to deep dive into this, but to cover the topic in the time that we have is to understand the value of what is going on in our heads and how to get our head in the game.
Mhm.
Birth is such a it is really important to talk about what the fears that we might have, some of the stresses in that we might encounter in labor, and to get our the mindset into in a way that, one that we're talking about decreasing fear, decreasing tension, increasing that allowing and that going with the flow and working with our body versus fighting their body or the process or your head, what's going on subconsciously.
I think in the lecture, my favorite lecture in the push prep is probably the pain lecture because there's so much to talk about around, you know, it's not as simple as like I want to have an epidural, I don't, right? Like even if you're like, I don't know, this is, I want an epidural, I don't want, that's okay, but you're not going to get it right away. Like you're going to be coping with, surges, contractions, whatever you want to call them, for a while until
Yeah.
you get that epidural. So it's really around also, and I think that this is really interesting. There's some this is cited in the course, but there's some research around the more fear you have, the longer your labor takes. And that's
Yeah,
backed up. Like they've studied it and it's more painful and it takes longer. So,
absolutely.
it's really that mindset work beforehand, isn't it? Is that what you would say?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's I mean, Penny Simkin, one of probably world's most famous doula, is talked about the fear, tension, pain cycle. And in the book that I, read, even before I had baby, we're going back, my kids are 30 and 27. So childbirth without fear and understanding physiologically what happens and how to work with your body through the process and what's going on in your head and what you're perceiving and, understanding what you're experiencing and how to work with that is can make or break the process. And I mean, obviously, if you have a lot of fear and you have then fear and then the tension, this is the triangle, right? More fear, more tension, more pain, more pain, more fear, more fear, more tension, right? So it really is a
Loop.
spiral
Yeah.
that if we can understand the process and understand that when we are feeling a surge or a contraction or a sensation, what this means and what is happening in my body. And if we understand how to work with that and decrease that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight nervous system, and increase that parasympathetic nervous system, the allowing, the rest, digest, being in the moment, being more mindful, tuning in, allowing versus like surrendering versus eek, and then so really what, as a doula, we're going in deep into this and we will to in our retreat that we're having coming up is going really into that fear, tension, pain cycle and understanding our autonomic nervous system and our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. But really, I talk about to my clients about who or what is your tiger, being that, and that came from birthing from within, and understanding that the tiger is, in labor, you're not going to be chased by a tiger, but in your head, often
Right.
you feel like you're being chased by a tiger or perceiving something as a threat. And in your body, when it feels threatened or it feels scared and it doesn't feel, that love and supported and that you have the information that you need, we tend to definitely hold tension. If we're holding tension in our body, then our blood is being shunted away from our internal organs, our smooth muscles to our extremities, to our arms and legs, because it thinks we need to run. It thinks we need to use those muscles. And ideally, we're only very passively using our large muscle groups in labor so that we can keep the blood supply in our smooth muscles and allow our cervix to dilate and our uterus to contract the way it's meant to and have fewer contractions. This is why labor is definitely faster in the absence or less fear, is because when you're working with your body, you have to have fewer contractions, generally to pull the fundus over the baby and allow the baby to come through and down and out of the cervix and uterus and
The
vaginal canal.
contractions are more effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I'll never forget. This is my favorite story to tell. And you were obviously with me the whole time, this first baby, and I remember like being transferred from triage where it's like the bright lights, it's terrible. Like I had an eye mask on the whole time, and I think I'd been throwing up. Like it was it was not a pretty picture. And I remember moving into the room, and now finally we could turn the lights down, and I could kind of create that cave to go in. And we'd been talking, you helped me so much beforehand, and we'd been talking around like this whole concept of reducing fear and getting the oxytocin flowing and kind of trying to make it this fun. And it sounds so wild to say like labor being fun, but like I want women listening to this to know you're going to get a break between contractions, assuming you don't have like Pitocin or anything going on. But like generally speaking, you get like a break. So you can totally relax. And we were like cracking jokes between the contractions. And at one point, you handed me a toothbrush. You had you're like Mary Poppins vibes. You like whipped it out of your bag, and it was one of those disposable toothbrushes that already had
The
like
toothpaste on it.
and I didn't
Yes.
need water. And you were like, here, and I had just been throwing up. And you took a picture of me like leaning over the back of the hospital bed, like brushing my teeth, like between contractions because I had just been vomiting. And I was like kind of like smiling, brushing my teeth, like, and then I remember I think you took a video and I'm like, hold on, it's coming. I'm having another one. And I'm just like the brush. Like it was just such a where you're like, this is so I never imagined to be brushing the vomit out of my mouth between contractions and laughing at the same time, but like it's possible with the right support around you.
Absolutely. And it's important to, both laughing and crying increases oxytocin. So that's important, right? That you want to, if you need a good cry, have a good cry. But if I can make my clients laugh,
Yeah.
really my primary job is to bring more love to the process. And that's if that's in the form of telling a joke or, not in the middle of a contraction. It's not very rarely ever a good time to tell a joke in the middle of a contraction.
No,
And
no.
tip to partners. Don't be telling jokes in the middle of
Yeah. Between
contractions.
them, between the contractions.
Yeah, between the contractions.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. I have never been more excited to see a toothbrush in my entire life. I was like,
And
I needed this. I didn't know how much I needed it until I had it in my hand. Thank you.
I think you said this is the best toothbrushing experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
need
It
it.
was a visceral core memory right there. Core memory.
Yeah,
So there you
creating
go.
that cave, right? Creating that cave is really important, and that does influence birth. If my recent with having my granddaughter arriving is that we set up the twinkle lights in the room and brought battery powered candles, and there's so much you can do to influence your cave, your setting, your surroundings, but also who's in the room with you and who's bringing more love. And hopefully the people who are with you are not tigers, even the people who maybe you're having shift change in a really well-meaning amazing nurse, but they seem like a tiger at the beginning, but they're really a pussy cat. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yep. So much to say on that too, improving relationships with nurses sometimes. But it's so important and it can be done. It can absolutely be done. I remember the one nurse said to me, she's like, all right, what's your birth plan? And it was sort of like matter of fact, like, here we go. And I just looked at her again. I think this was right before I started
I'm
using the
laughing because I remember what you said.
and I was like, I'm gonna have an orgasmic birth. She was just like immediately started laughing. We got the oxytocin flowing. Did I have an orgasmic birth? No, no, I did not. I want to hear from you. If you did, call me. I'll interview you. But no, I did not have an orgasm during my birth. But I did laugh, and I think that made a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have, you asked me before, Nikki, I think it was when we were speaking one of the other episodes about how many births I've been to. I think I've been at about 700 births, and I have never seen an orgasmic birth per se, but I have seen many, many, many completely zen births where we did laugh a lot between contractions. And I know if I did nothing else, I can 100% say that in every single birth experience, I have brought more love to the process, and therefore, in my client's perception, I would say that it's a better birth experience because of you can help people get definitely reduce that fear and work with their bodies and do the reminders, tell them the reminders that they don't always remember at the time, but they know.
Totally. You're amazing. Ah, I'm so excited for this retreat. Yay!
It's going to be amazing. Thank you.